Hello class of EDL 850. This is Nelson Rush with Module 16, a case study. So in the case study for our class, what do I know? Well, I know that a struggling teacher has made her students and her families upset by the performance in the classroom. I know that the principal is viewed as supportive and has good relationships with the families and is well respected. But I also know that an individual or a group has targeted the teacher with malicious rhetoric via email or website. So what do I need to know in this situation? Well, I need to know the school board policies on internet violations. I need to know what further action the principal needs to take after speaking with the students, since the case study left right where the principal is going to speak with them. I need to know if this is something that the community should be brought together to discuss, and I need to know if the matter warrants greater legal concerns, such as involving the police. I would like to know if there is a counselor or therapeutic person that can check in with both the students and the teacher after this time. So the problem, the teacher has been unresponsive to professional development and necessary change to her practice at the school. But I also know that there is a possibility that a student made a threat towards the staff. And this could be transient or this could be substantive. Now, if this is a transient threat, these are often temporary, generally not genuine expressions of intent to harm. They tend to resolve on the spot. Responding to these threats may not require safety precautions, but may require making an apology or amends to that relationship, and providing counseling and education where appropriate so that students may not make this. Typically, we see a lot of these transient threats happen with younger populations of students. If it is, then administrative discipline might be appropriate. However, if it's not a transient threat, if it's a substantive threat, then this is an express of physical injury to somebody beyond the immediate situation, and this person may most likely act on that threat. It will require taking proactive and protective measures. It may require legal involvement. If in doubt, it's best to go with this kind of threat should it occur and treat it seriously. So I'd create an action plan to help address this, and the steps I would initiate would be to evaluate the threat level first of all, to decide if the threat is clearly transient or substantive, respond to a transient threat. However, if it is the opposite, if it's substantive, then I would treat this very seriously. I would respond to it, conduct a safety evaluation, follow up on the action plan, and address the effectiveness. Now, once the action plan has been carried out, it would be key to determine if the threat indeed came from a student or not. The teacher has said that she thinks she knows who, but knowing the threat, counseling for the student and the teacher can begin. Consequences from the administration or the police can be carried out. And better prescriptive professional plans can be created for the teacher. And communication with the families can be given, and rehabilitation of relationships with the teacher and the student can begin as well. So if we are going off the assumption that the teacher is indeed right, and it is from the student that she suspects, the threat was made, but we see that it's actually just transient, I would recommend the following. I would recommend that the student's family be notified of the events, and the student is provided a risk assessment by a counselor to see if there is further risk potential to the teacher, to the student, or to the school. I would follow through with administrative consequences as per the handbook, or I would prefer to use a restorative justice model with the student to try to empower them to rehabilitate that relationship and learn from their mistakes so that we can move on in a better way than just consequences. I would also approach the teacher with counseling opportunities. I think that's fair for them as well. And then provide prescriptive professional development. The teacher has been asked before to follow through with classroom changes. This time I think it would be appropriate to take that into the administration's hands and prescribe that for the teacher to help her develop her practice and increase her ability to build relationships with her students. So not as a consequence, but as a point of learning and moving forward. Now, what was I thinking looking at this case study? Well, my first reaction was to doubt the teacher's claims. And I wanted to approach this with a more open mind. I understand that the teacher was upset, but jumping to conclusions in a situation like this could cause more harm than good. When I was looking at the problem, I can't sympathize with student frustration that a teacher is struggling to respond to the student's needs. I can also see how hard it would be and how devastating and troubling it would be for an educator to receive a threat like that, especially when it's so public. Ultimately, it is very apparent that both the student and the teachers have some needs, and they require skills to be bettered and empowered before they both might be able to interact with each other. And both parties need change in order for them to remain at the school. What issues are still unresolved? Well, really, does the director or the superintendent need to be involved in this case? Do the police need to be involved? Does this require legal action, depending on the area? Some areas might take this as a very serious thing, even though it might be transient. Some student handbooks may have a zero tolerance policy. We don't know what the policy is here with this case study. Other places might be more lax or might be more used to this kind of rhetoric. So we just don't know that. How will this impact the student response to frustration later? Will there be spikes in threats? Especially other students hearing about this, and then maybe if the student who follow through with the action, if they return, other students might perceive that this is okay or that he got away with it. Who knows? Can the student and the teacher return to a neutral classroom? Do both individuals have the ability to actually come back together and participate in the learning environment without hostility? Is it even the student in question that the teacher pointed out? We just don't know. Will the teacher respond to the professional development? Should she be given a prescriptive plan? Or will this require more intervention later on or dismissal? And then, of course, what will the response from the community be? The case study verified that this was a really stable and affluent community. With an incident like this might hurt the reputation of the school. This might also cause a lot of uproar and may force the hand of the administration to go a different direction. The case study wanted us to focus on Standard 5. The building level administrator is an educational leader who promotes the success of all students by acting with integrity, fairness, and in an ethical manner. And in doing so, the case study wanted me to look at such things as demonstrating a sense of integrity and ethical behavior. So I think in my response, allowing the investigation without the assumption of guilt on a particular student was really important in remaining neutral. Identifying that both the student and the teacher require change in this process, I think, is also a balanced approach. Avoiding zero tolerance and trying to implement restorative justice allows for better relationship building and can help the student and the teacher both in the long term, and also maintain the integrity of the school. And including the family is a safety issue, and it's important. When it comes to treating people fairly and equitably, with dignity and respect, I feel I gave the student and the teacher both fair opportunities to investigate the matter without suspicion or guilt placed on one person or following an opinion. Both the teacher and the student's feelings were acknowledged. We understand that the student is facing hardship in the classroom and that the teacher is facing hardship from the student's response. And both the student and the teacher were given opportunities to develop both their skills and rework that relationship in the classroom. And finally, demonstrating a professional code of ethics. I think that I have worked ethically to address the issue and finding a meaningful resolution for both the student and for the teacher. I think that I upheld an ethical action plan that treats people, or that helps people to clearly respond to threat levels now and in the future. I feel like I have professionally addressed the concerns of the staff in a way that was dignified but also solution-oriented. And I provided a way to discreetly and responsibly address the issue for those who were involved, should it not require further action. And finally, I provided a way to address the plan and be more responsive should there actually be other occurrences, and this might be a good platform to kind of help address those concerns later on in the future, should they be dissimilar. So thank you for taking the time to listen to my presentation. I look forward to hearing the rest of yours. Thank you again.